Courtney Carol Levinson here. Thank you for joining us. The America Scores Bay Area team, Kicking and Screening Media Group, and the director of the powerful film we hope you've all had the chance to watch today, Arielle Thomas Sabol. This is a powerhouse team here. Women in Soccer is honored and pumped to bring this group together tonight to celebrate the powerful way this game is used to create change. Let's start by introducing our friends and partners, America Scores. The work of America Scores is the magic of this mix. For those of you who do not know, Scores combines poetry and soccer to help empower children and lead healthy lifestyles, be engaged students, and have confidence and character to make a difference in the world. As a national organization, you can likely find an America Scores in your neighborhood city. Please go volunteer. We would love to have you there. We love their work. We are excited to spotlight our friends in the Bay Area specifically this evening. To continue the impactful work of this organization, consider sharing a donation of any amount. We're shouting $11 for our Playing for Peace starting squad. Your contribution is shaping the future generations of this country. And as we learned from this film, it's the power of peace and collaboration between our neighbors that enables true sustainability and growth. And before I hand it over to the Scores team to give you additional details into their work, I will quickly spotlight our partners, Kicking and Screening Media Group, who made it possible for us to all watch this film today. K&S is the world's first film distribution company dedicated solely to films about soccer/football. Their latest screening room, where you can have viewed Playing for Peace, is a little slice of heaven. Check it out. We gave it a shout out in our latest newsletter as well. Dive in this weekend. Also, Playing for Peace will be available to be viewed until 12 a.m. Pacific today if you haven't seen it yet. Without further ado, I hand it to our friends at America Scores to say hello before they introduce Greg Lalas with Kicking and Screening Media Group, who will be leading our discussion with Arielle Thomas Sabol. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. My name is Colin Schmidt. I'm the executive director out here in the Bay Area, where we have America Scores programs in San Francisco and Oakland and the North Bay, and now even in San Jose. So we're really excited about the growth and the opportunity we have coming out of COVID to really get back and engage with the youth firsthand. Courtney, we were so pleased to be, part of this, invited to be part of this collaboration, to be on your team here. You're a powerhouse and you're doing amazing things with women in soccer. So it's been fun to watch you and your organization and to be part of it. And you're such a great spokesperson. We just really appreciate that. This film in particular is really personal to us, and at an existential level. Like, this is what this is what soccer does. It can bring people together, right? And it can and it should. And this is such a powerful story. So we are really pleased to be part of it, to hear more from Arielle about her experience making it. And Greg, yes, we're huge fans of just everything you've been doing over the years, and that you made it through COVID here, and that you're going to be getting back out with live screenings where we can get together, our communities in person. Again, that's the theme here: bring people together through sport and soccer, to connect and commune. So it's just we just really feel happy and at peace with this community and the message, and we're just really just happy and proud to be part of it. So thank you all. And Greg, let me turn it back over to you just to say a few words before we get into the Q&A with Arielle.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So my name is Greg Lalas, and I'm one of the co-founders and directors of the Kicking and Screening Media Group, which is the umbrella organization that runs Kicking and Screening Soccer Film Festival, which is an annual festival held in New York City. Unfortunately, COVID canceled the 2020 edition, but we are expected to be back September 14th through 17th, live in person in New York City. So we're very excited about that. We've also been doing some virtual screenings, and we're actually going to do a quick sort of satellite event July 29th at the Westport Library in Westport, Connecticut. which has a beautiful screening room and it's incredible facilities. So we're going to screen a film called Men of Hope, which also plays into this theme a little bit of bringing people together. It is actually about the Afghan national team and some of the work that the coach, who was a German Croatian guy, did to try to bring that team together. So we're very excited about that and bringing all of this back in person, as Colin said, because we cannot wait. But we are also very excited about the work that we've been doing around the film Playing for Peace, which is expected to be out on some VOD platforms very soon. And we've had a couple of screenings now of it. We did one in March, and now this one. And it is a very powerful film with a strong message about the power of soccer to unite people and to bring about social change in the community itself. And that is a theme that the director, Arielle Thomas Sabol, has leaned into in her entire career, is this idea of social causes and telling stories in depth about what it means to change society, or to point something out that needs to be changed in ways that it is being changed. To give a quick intro for Arielle and bio, previously she's worked on some incredible documentary series and films. She was involved with CNN's Chicagoland, which did very well, obviously. Also the Ocean Warriors, which was executive produced by Robert Redford. Am I correct in that, Arielle? Is that right?
Yeah.
And then HBO's Class Divide is another one, and then Freeway, Cracking the System. Those are some of the ones that I think pop out for her. She's done a lot of productions over the years, but those ones in particular, and thinking about them, they all have themes and tell stories that are looking to have an impact on the community and society and something that's going on in there. And Playing for Peace is no different in that way, with its strong message about really one woman's vision to take a team and have it really impact the community. So Arielle, welcome and thank you for joining us here.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for the wonderful intro.
So Playing for Peace is your directorial debut. And tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this incredible project, taking yourself to Israel to film all of this. I've seen some of the stills, by the way, like the behind the scenes stuff, which is awesome as well. So tell us how you got involved.
Yeah, so I, like you mentioned, had worked on a lot of productions for wonderful production companies and directors, and really wanted to do my own film. And sort of in the time that I had decided, okay, I'm ready to direct something on my own, I lost my grandfather, who was very close to me, or I was very close to him. And he was a professional soccer player in Israel in his youth. And he was born in Jerusalem in the 1920s, and he spoke Arabic and he spoke Hebrew, and he sort of instilled in me and my mom this desire for peace. He had lived there for so long and done so much, and really wanted to just have peace in Israel. And so I was looking for a story to tell about the Middle East, about soccer, and happened to come across an article on Hapoel Beersheva, and did a little research, and was shocked to see that no one had done a longer documentary or, any sort of Western news coverage or anything like that on the team. And yeah, it really, took it from there, reached out to a few people, I got connected a lot faster than I thought I would. To the team. They were very excited, and ended up doing a Kickstarter to fund production, and went overseas. And yeah, everything sort of fell into place. It was a lot of work, but fell into place very nicely, and was so happy to be able to spend some really intimate time with the team and Alona to tell this story.
How long were you involved in production in this? What was the actual shooting of it over in Israel?
So the shooting itself was pretty short. I was only there for a few weeks. We sort of had this idea to take a snapshot of the team. So I ended up following them for a few weeks, sort of leading up to their UEFA championship run, which was the furthest any Israeli team had gotten. So that was exciting. And I actually had planned to go later on in the season, but they were so excited about this UEFA run that I kind of rushed everything to get over there and connect with them. And then post-production was a lot longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about Alona. She's a fascinating character. Obviously a very dynamic person with, you know, a big heart, but also lots of strategy and really thinking through all of this. And maybe has a little bit of the same dynamic that you had with your, you know, what your grandfather instilled in you of like, we've got to figure out a way to join these communities or something. So give us a little bit about your first impressions of her when you met her. How did you warm up to her? So, because you got some incredible stuff out of her during the filming.
Yeah, she had my first impression. She has this very, very like larger than life persona, but also is very humble and, you know, will be she's the type of person where when you're talking to her one-on-one, it's like, she's with you. She's not distracted. She's not, even though I know she has a million things going on, she's really like right there with you. And I think that that's something that, you know, really helps her in all her work. And yeah, I think her story is really interesting. Growing up in Ashkelon, you know, Ashkelon is really close to the Gaza border, and it's a town that, especially, you know, sort of in her youth, got a lot of rockets hit, like a lot of, you know, having to go into your bomb shelter. Like that was her upbringing, because it's so close to the Gaza border. And so yeah, and I think she had this desire to make a difference, and sort of for her, this team was something that was like a little bit later in life. She had moved to the US, she moved back to Israel, and really she didn't know that much about soccer. She just bought the team to impact the community. And I found it very interesting how, you know, she does all these youth programs. You know, there was so much we filmed and didn't use or couldn't film, really investing into the community. And for her, it was really about, she wanted to transform the city. And it was, you know, like we've said in this conversation, she saw the potential to have soccer bring people together. And so started in the community with people that are very young, all the way up to the fans. You know, she works closely with the mayor of Beersheba. So she's really impacting an entire, you know, large city in Israel, and I would say the nation itself.
Before I get to the next question, Colin, do you have your hand up?
I do.
Oh.
But you could you jump, you know, just pass me the ball. I'll pass it back in a minute. I just wanted, well, I was remiss earlier. I wanted to shout out Alicia from the America Scores team here, and Vivi, Coach Vivi, who's joined us for this Q&A as part of the America Scores team and our community club, IFC. Vivi's a youth coach. And you mentioned, you're starting to talk about the youth program, the community outreach, and I know, you know, there's a lot that gets cut in the making of these documentaries, but I'm just so curious about that role of coaches and that youth programming and how it flowed from this vision at the professional level. Arielle, long question here, but you know, could you just speak a little bit more about that intersection, you know, with the youth program and the coaches and the people? Did everybody just buy into this vision? Was it hard to get, you know, the masses motivated? Was it, what, you know?
That's a great question. I think, Alona had this vision to, like I said, transform and really start with the youth on up. And I think that it took something, I don't know, she doesn't describe it as hard, but she's very, like I said, very humble and very modest. So she doesn't describe it as hard, but I think it took something to share this vision and get it across. Today I know that they see a lot of people that started as young athletes stay in the city of Beersheba. You know, you saw Elianiv was playing and in Europe and in Belgium, and came home because he wanted to contribute to this community. So I think, and now he's retired from soccer and he's coaching and on Beersheba. So I think there's a very strong community sentiment. So I don't know if I hope that answered your question, but I definitely think that the team is structured differently where they really touch everything in the city. And I think, Beersheba has grown so much. They have an amazing university. It's really like almost like the San Francisco of Israel now, ironically, connecting with you all. But I think that is in part because of this team and what they've accomplished and, the difference they've made.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's an inspiration. It's a story and a vision that we would like to see played out here in the San Francisco and in other cities in terms of, again, bringing, divided groups together, whatever that division may be.
Yeah.
Great.
And at any level too, right? Whether it's at the youth level and all the way up. I want to stay on Alana for one more question. You and I were talking actually before this a little bit about the fact that she's a woman is a major part of this story. I was also, as you were talking about her, I was also thinking about that, and then the connection of you as a woman going in to make this story about a soccer team. And there aren't that, I'm in the soccer content space, and there aren't a lot of women making stories about professional men's soccer out there.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you guys connected on that a little bit, and then also maybe give us a little bit about her take on the fact that she is a woman in this very male-dominated industry.
Yeah, we definitely connected on that. We spoke about it. It was also unspoken. I just felt like she was constantly just very empowering. And I was pretty young when I went over. I was 26. So, a younger to tell a story, create a film. And the team just completely supported me. That I never felt like I had to, I just felt like I could be myself basically, and organically and naturally tell the story. I think for Alona, she had, she was the first female owner of any soccer team in Israel. I think when she talks about it, she likes to just make it like I'm not a woman owner. I'm just an owner of a soccer team. But like she doesn't like to stand out. But I think she also recognizes the difference she's made for, we interviewed little girls in the community of Beersheba who they went to all of Beersheba's games throughout Europe, and they said, Alona's our person, and because she can do it, we can do anything. So she does inspire a whole community. And I think it was difficult for her at first. She says in the film, soccer is a very chauvinist field. And I think it was difficult for her, but I think along the way she created, people just saw her commitment and saw her heart, and that spoke louder than anything else.
I love that, and I think you clearly got something out of her, so you built a relationship there. With her, and regardless of where that's coming from, right? It's so evident in the film itself.
She's actually a little shy. She's not super, her persona is like this, like larger than life, but she's not super outgoing. She's a little introverted, she's very modest. So I felt very special, especially, and I think you're talking about the behind the scenes footage. We have these huge cameras and we have this, all this equipment, and it can be intimidating to get somebody to open up. And we definitely had a connection, and she doesn't do a lot of media. So I felt very, very lucky to have this time with her.
Now, speaking of relationships, let's shift to another one that I know you've had that you built during the filming of this. And I found it really interesting. We were talking about this earlier. Is that Israel obviously is in a moment that is tensions are higher than they've been in a long time, and it obviously has a history of tension there, but it seems very high recently, especially. But it feels like this film is a little bit of sort of, I don't know, you said it earlier, it's emblematic of what's possible. Talk to me about that, and then this other relationship that you ended up building through this film.
Sure. Yeah. Another motivation, I talked about the personal motivation for me to tell this story because of my grandfather and the piece, but another motivation for me was I wanted, you hear all these headlines in the news, and not just headlines, I mean, what's actually happening in Israel. And it's very hard to hear. It's very hard to see, like so many opinions on social media and lives impacted. And I just wanted to show that there is something else possible. And this team can be, and this community can really be a microcosm for something else being possible in Israel. And I definitely, working with Maharan Radi, the Arab Israeli soccer player who grew up in the north of Israel, he and I really established this like very deep connection. I'll tell a little story about him if I have time. When I first met him, I met him like the night after a big game, and he was really tired, and we were waiting in the, like outside the locker room to connect with him. And I thought the players were sort of told I was coming and given a heads up, because here I am, I'm like everything riding on this. And I get there, and we have a great meeting, and I meet the Maharan, and he's like, what are we doing? We're filming tomorrow. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, okay, that's fine. I just don't want to talk about anything political or anything religious. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's the whole film. So but he's like, okay, just come meet me in my town tomorrow. Sort of very Israeli or Middle Eastern about it. And said, just come to the town at noon tomorrow, and I'll meet you there. So I, of course, go early because I want to get some shots and some B-roll, and I'm a little nervous. And so I call him at noon, and he doesn't answer. Call him at 1 o'clock or 12:30, doesn't answer. And I'm like, we're all the way up in like the north of Israel in this like small town, and I have my crew that this is only our second day of filming, and I'm very nervous about what they think. And so I tell them to start filming, the town, and so they start filming this mosque and just the exterior. And these three men approach me, and they're like, "What are you filming?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a film about Maharan Radi." And they stare at me, and then they're like, "Why didn't you say so? I'm his uncle. This is his grandmother's house." And I think his cheek was there. So one of them called him, and then he shows up, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. Had something going on." So luckily he came, and I had like a 2-minute car ride with him from that point to his parents' house where we were doing doing some filming. And I just shared with him, about my vision, about how I wanted to show what was possible. I also wanted to show Islam and in a different light. I think in in maybe not documentaries, but a lot in movies, and they can be portrayed as like terrorists, or so I just shared with him my vision, and it was like he was like, okay. And we started rolling, did the interview, and I now have like, I don't even know how many hours of interview with him, because he was so, I think, just like honored to be able to share his story and to be able to share what was possible. And so, today, fast forward, it's almost 4 years later, or I think 4 years later, and we have this really strong relationship, so much so that when tensions were recently rising in Israel, and there was, Hamas and the Israeli government and rockets and, people dying and fighting within Israel. And it just like, things felt really, really bad. He and I were able to connect, and we checked in on each other's families. My mom called him. We just have this, we're like family now. And I really think like, that's what's possible. That's what's possible in the world. And I think the way to have that grow more is to share these stories and hopefully impact people, and have sports like soccer, continue to bring people together.
Yeah. And has he seen the film?
Yes, he's seen
What
it.
does he think?
He has the link. He loves it.
Right.
He really loves it. yeah, the first time I showed it to him, we were like sitting in a cafe, and he was really excited. And yeah, he unfortunately lost his mom to COVID, which was really sad. And she was, she's in the film, so I sent him a lot of, he has this keepsake of her. But yeah, he was really proud of the film, and he forwards me all like the messages he gets, and yeah, I think he really was happy with how he was represented.
What have been some of the other reactions to it from people?
Yeah, so Beersheba fans loved it. Got a lot. They are very passionate. They have the ultras, and they very much loved it. I got a lot of messages saying, thank you for sharing our story. And but I think across Israel, we premiered on sort of like the ESPN of Israel, the Israeli sports network, and got a lot of positive feedback, and that was great. And I think, here across the US doing these screenings and like that, I find that people learn a lot, but definitely the town of the city of Beersheba was very happy.
Yeah, I bet. We got a question from Alicia,
Yeah.
actually, that came in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
And I think maybe this can also be a good thought to sort of think about, well, where people are now, even.
Right.
So the question that came in from Alicia was, in the film, it's mentioned that Alona may run for a government position. Has she started pursuing this yet?
Yes. Okay. So she is really, it's a little hard to follow, but they have a multi-party system, and she was like the vice president for one of the, there was like several runoff elections. So in one of the runoff elections, or not the vice president, she was like the third in line within that party. But unfortunately, they're trying to build a coalition. It didn't happen. And now she's not right. And I haven't talked to her the past like few weeks, but right now she's not in the government. Other people, Elianiv is now, I think I mentioned this earlier, he's a coach now in Beersheba, and he says it's very fulfilling for him. And he sort of was able to, like he says, he had the option to stay in Belgium and continue playing soccer, but he was very happy to finish out his career in Beersheba and now coach. Maharan is still playing. He plays for a different team. And, I've had a lot of conversations with him about what's next. I always tell him he should do something in politics, not politics, but in a leadership position. So we'll see, more to come with him. And yeah, I think I covered everyone. Yeah.
And what's next for you? What are you working on next?
Great question. So I have my own production company, and I'm always, pursuing, like we talked about in the beginning, stories that make a difference. I also do some branded content and help brands tell stories that make a difference. So have been enjoying pursuing that, and we'll see. Would love to go back to sort of, now that things are opening up a bit more and travel is a little bit easier and we're vaccinated, would love to continue to tell stories in the Middle East.
Awesome. Well, Arielle, thank you very much for joining us for this. If there are any questions from anybody, anyone else who wants to jump in, feel free. You can just turn on your camera and audio and jump in. But if no other questions, then we'll call it a night. But Arielle, thank you very much for this. Thank you for the film, because it is awesome. And we at Kicking and Screening are very proud to work with it. And we also want to thank everyone involved here. Courtney, everything you're doing at Women in Soccer is so amazing. And obviously anything we can do to help would be great. Wait, we have a hand up. I see a hand up before we jump in. VV,
Hi.
by the way, the greatest name ever. Love it.
It's my nickname. My actual name's Vittoria Volpe, so I go by my initials, which I think
nice.
But yeah, I just had a question.
We're in a car, and now you're in a like centralized location.
I'm sorry, I'm on East Coast time, and I thought it was at 9. I thought it was at 9, but then I saw, and I was like, oh no. So I was in the car. But yeah,
We got you. We've all been in that space where we've taken the call.
That's just the beauty of Zoom. Yeah. So my question for you, I obviously you learned a lot from making this film, right?
Mhm.
I just wanted to know, like, in what ways did making this like influence who you are as a person now?
Yeah.
And also, what have you learned from your experience in the Middle East compared to, I assume you live in the US,
Yeah.
compared to your experience here in the US?
Yeah, those are great questions. Thank you so much for asking. Let's see. So I'll start. The film definitely impacted who I am today. One, I think it was just a lifelong dream. Like I wanted to tell a story or do a documentary about the Middle East since I was like 10 years old. And so when having that be fulfilled is just the best feeling ever. And more than just personal, I wanted to do it because I wanted people to see the story. So knowing that there's people like you and just able to see the film and hear the message is really impactful for me. And it definitely, I feel like gives me a lot of confidence to go do what's next for me personally, but also just like more fulfillment, knowing that it's out there, it's completed, and it's hopefully impacting people. And then I grew up going to Israel every year. But I hadn't spent like I said, my grandfather spoke Arabic, and we would go into like Arab towns and sort of communicate a little bit, and they have the best food. So we'd get food and pizza and like that, but never, and I did some like volunteer programs with Muslim communities in Israel, but never really created these like these bonds like I have now. So I feel like that too has impacted me, just like knowing that I have someone or families that I'm close with now, that, like a Bedouin family, that I just got to walk in their shoes for a little bit and see what their life experience is like. That's definitely impacted me and my storytelling, I think, because I think anytime you walk in somebody else's shoes, it gives you a whole new perspective on life. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just have one more
100%.
question,
sure.
really quick. So, what is a piece of advice you have for like a young filmmaker, somebody passionate about filmmaking and don't necessarily know what specifically they want to do, or are like scared of the profession? Because, obviously
Yeah.
this is huge, like
Yeah.
going to the Middle East, like, yeah, what's a piece of advice you would give to the youth?
That's a great question. Let's see. So I didn't really, I studied communications in college. I didn't really have sometimes when I started at my production companies, I would look at other people and say, oh, they have this degree and that degree. And so I would sometimes get intimidated. But my advice would just be like, share your vision, share your dream, because there are so many people like my career is what it is because of the connections and the relationships I've made and people being willing to give me advice. And, so put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to like ask questions and share what you're going for. And then at the end of the day, I always say, like, we can be our own worst critics or our own worst enemies. So don't listen to the voice in here. Listen to surround yourself with people out there who, you ask them, what the truth is, because they, people are very supportive. That was what I found. So not super tangible advice, but hopefully that helped.
But it's about putting yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
And then when you do, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in what I think or feel about this particular topic, right? And you want to have access to like-minded people who can point people in the right direction.
Right.
When something like this is front and center, and it needs to be like taken out of that person's brain space, because it's a storytelling adventure that will land on the women who want to know the backstories of power. Because we are all searching for our power in this game that hasn't been marketed to us. as a place for you to come in and experience power.
Yeah.
And despite that, like, despite somebody thinking that an Israeli and I don't know, a multinational club could win it all and come together despite all of the obstacles, right? We need those beacons, right? Where everything is like put aside, and like we're facing a lot of, hard conversations that aren't just religiously based, right? And we need to have a place where that conversation can take place, right? And when I see the players at Basharab like feel heard and seen, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm not invisible. Like it's real and it's happening, and I'm a catalyst for a voice for change. So all these bridges to these populations that seem to have been like left out of shit, right? Or like left behind, or like not represented in a way where it's like, actually there's like so many players that look like that should be like on this team. It feels good to have like the people coming back into some power, into some voice that brings us back to, it's not always about dollars for dollars. I want the dollars to go to the players, right? And like the women who make these films. And Greg, I did not segue that, right? And like, I'm like gonna like think about that.
No, it's great. No. It's great. I get exactly what you're saying, and I think
it's just like
it's a good one.
And have some like economic equity where in all the spaces, right? And so America Scores is this unique voice that comes in, and like imagine an America Scores in Israel and Palestine, right? And the power that could have in representation and bridge making. It's bigger than me, and so I turn it over to the people who are like in the mire. And so I trust you all to bring your inclusive lens to how you're coming to this position. And it's something Israel hasn't seen in a long time, and neither has America. And like, God, we're all in this really uncomfortable spot, but for the better, because those people, we all are living here and deserve to access the beauty and the joy of the game at that level that, that is deserved.
If I can just try to connect a couple of things on there, that all three of you, with your question, Vivi, and then Arielle, and then what Courtney's talking about. And Courtney talked about sort of building bridges, right? And Vivi, I think your question was a really good one. It's like, okay, well, what's your advice? And I thought it was interesting that Arielle's take was basically build bridges. The advice was to build bridges and don't expect someone to do it for you. You can ask for help because people want to help you build bridges. And I think Courtney, what you're saying is that not enough people are maybe asking to say, let's do this. We want to do this. And I think that's, you can connect it all together. I think that's, Arielle, I love that advice. Just saying, like, don't be afraid to say, hey, I need some help. We've all been players. How often, we go to our coach and say, coach, I'm sorry, I don't know how to chest trap the ball. Help me, teach me how to do this. And the coach is there. It's like, you got it. I'm in. I'll help you out, right? And I think that happens much more beyond just a soccer field. It's a great lesson that we all learn on a soccer field. My family and other people that I work with are sick of all these soccer and team analogies that I make all the time. So, but that's one of them, right? That's one of those, like.
So is mine.
Yeah. Coaches are there, right? What you're doing, Vivi, for a young, player out there, /poet, /filmmaker, whatever they want to be, right? I think that it's the same thing for any of them. It's like, ask me for help because I'm here to help. And so few of us, we all feel like we need to do it by ourselves sometimes. And I think that's just not true. And, that love all of that. Love all of that.
And I'll just jump in and say that what I gathered from all that was that maybe not next one, but down the line, we're gonna need a documentary on SCORE's, Middle East,
Right.
and the program, how this program got going, and the importance of the poetry and the soccer and the voice and the bringing people together on and off the field. So that was how I took all this, and so I'm looking forward to that screening coming up soon. And I'm glad that this.
Are you ready to launch America Scores Jerusalem?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
feel like art bridges all of us, right? And this is art, and it goes there. Do it, Colin. Launch
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, we're ready. And I'm glad that this is recorded too, because I gotta, Courtney, what you were saying, I gotta replay that to fully appreciate it. But I appreciate your, your deep thinking on all this stuff and how you see all these connections. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Colin.
All right, y'all. Let's we'll call it a night on this one.
Cheers.
So I want to thank everyone for coming out, and Courtney, thanks for the organization side for WIS. America Scores Bay Area, thank you very much for this as well. And anyone who's watching this, go to americascoresba.org. Is that correct?
Close. americascoresbayarea.org.
Sorry. americascoresbayarea.org. You can learn more information and you can donate to them. That's always good. So make sure that they've got the funding to do the programming that they're doing. So that's about it. Courtney, you want to finish it up?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, Greg, and thank you for the Kicking and Screening Media Company, and thank you for Arielle, and thank you, America Scores. And it was an absolute pleasure. And stay tuned for a follow-up email from the WIS team, including a link to the discussion and a chance for you to give us your feedback on this event. And if you have not done so already, please consider lending support to America Scores. Get over to the K&S screening room. And last but not least, certainly, sign up as a member of Women in Soccer. It's free. Once again, on behalf of the entire Women in Soccer team, it's been a long night, sorry, filled with thunderstorms and weird stuff, and my kids are here and all this stuff. Trying to stay on script. America Scores, Kicking and Screening, Women in Soccer wouldn't be here without both of these entities. So my humblest gratitude to everybody involved to bring this to life, and there's more to come, and stay tuned. Thank you everybody for being here, and thank you America Scores. Thank you Kicking and Screening. Greg, I love you. Colin, love you. Leisha, love you. Oh my goodness. Arielle, help me all the time. Okay. Love you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
It's like,
Thank you so much, Arielle. I mean, it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring, especially as a youth,
can go
to really see what you've done.
Let's talk about
And
it.
your advice as well is super, as a coach especially, it's hard to, really be yourself and put yourself out there. And so that transition from player to coach for me was especially difficult. But now, as I've become more comfortable with coaching, I've learned that I am really like building bridges and expanding my community. And I'm really grateful for that. So thank you for the amazing advice and for your time.
Vivi, you are a bridge maker. Step into it. Lean in, girl. We need you. And with that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Good night, y'all.
everyone. Bye.